Intocatum braconchum pros. An Andromedan scientist yelled at his lab assistants as they hurried, making use of every piece of equipment in the dilapidated laboratory of the galactic jail. Smoke and steam filled the capsule built into the wall. Prepes on Canshla Malterza, the scientist yelled. And thwa! Twoon! The smoke and steam filled the glass containers, swirling within, glowing with the subtlest hint of purple. Drawn. Lights flashed in the room, going dark then bright red in quick succession. Wayne, the scientist in the room waited, barely breathing. Conscience succends, the scientist exclaimed ecstatically. The scientists cheered. The capsule opened and steam poured out from the machine. A man stepped forward from the capsule with a wobbly lunge. Scientists caught him as he fell from the container, naked and shaking as wires snapped from his arms. The man's face, pale and narrow, was the splitting image of what the Sentinel had become. It worked, the main scientist of the group smiled. Canshla. Con, the clone stuttered his name in his native language. Shna. Canshla. The scientist grabbed his arm as the room closed in to admire their creation. They clothed him, poked and prodded, took samples and readings, leaving him not a moment to himself. The scientist pushed the clone aside onto a platform in the room. They fastened wrist attachments to the clone and readied him. You know what to do? Yes. Kill the Sentinel. Make it quick. The scientist pressed a button, and the clone vanished from the room in a flash of light. The scientist held out his arms to his compatriots. Soon the Andromeda Galaxy will have a Sentinel of its own. The room erupted into cheers. Canshla appeared in Vax's apartment. Without hesitation, he grabbed the Sentinel on the couch and tossed him to the ground, waking him up. The Sentinel flinched and snapped his fingers. An explosive spark of plasma shot from his hand into Cansla's chest and flung him into a wall. Canshla stood up, grunting. Vax rushed out of her room and turned on a light, revealing two identically dressed and identically faced men standing in the room. Sentinel? The Sentinel and Canshla looked at Vax. Leave! They both growled. The Sentinel looked up at Canshla. Who are you? Canshla snapped his fingers. Nothing happened. He tried again. The Sentinel held out his palm and blasted flames at Canshla, pinning him against the wall as he approached. He stopped in front of Canshla. A blade of solid crystal plasma extended from the Sentinel's wrist, and he held it to Cansla's chin. You aren't me. You're the man on Mars. What? Canshla grimaced. I'm Canshla. Why are you here? To kill you. He snapped his fingers. He snapped his fingers over and over. Ah! He held out his hand, shaking as he strained himself. His face burned red as he tried to summon flames. Who sent you? The Sentinel asked, pushing him up further against the wall. Canshla tackled the Sentinel, and as he pushed the Sentinel into the ground, the Sentinel jabbed forward, stabbing Canshla with a plasmatic blade. Canshla vanished from the room, leaving his blood on the floor and nothing else. What the hell was that? Vax asked. Another thing to worry about? The Sentinel groaned. Of course, I don't have any say in it. I can't do anything until he comes back. I'm sure it's all part of the Paradox Master's plan anyway. I am just his puppet. Are you still mad at him? Obviously. I'm sure he has a reason. Then he better explain it. The Sentinel crawled back onto the couch. Sorry for the mess, Vax. Go back to sleep. I'll be alright. Are you sure? I know everything's weird, but that still wasn't normal, right? Good night, Vax. Vax hesitated. Good night. Canshla appeared on the platform in the Galactic Jail Library, holding his bleeding wound at the side of his ribs. Is he dead? The scientist asked. Canshla shook his head and groaned. I couldn't use his power. The scientists walked into the room and muttered among themselves. It didn't work. The Sentinel must have broken the system when he escaped. No, cloning has never worked. His blood doesn't transfer the power. Not in his second incarnation, and not even right after phasing at his plasmatic height. The main scientist stared at Canshla. Shame. What a waste of blood and time. Send him down to Ilsos. We're done here. He turned to leave the room. Wait! Canshla called out. What will you do with me? He wavered as blood puddled beneath him. Nothing. We don't need you. You can do whatever you want now. You brought me to life just to throw me away? You didn't work, the main scientist said with a shrug. He pressed a button, sending Canshla away. Canshla teleported and appeared in an alley between run-down buildings by a busy street on a dark alien planet. He held his side, still bleeding, as he crawled onto the street.